Easy breezy.
We're going to start our Can I have your attention, please? Thank you. Can you all hear me? Okay. All right. Thank you for coming tonight to the candidates night for the League of Women Voters. If you'll bear with me for 1 minute, I have to make an announcement, and that is that Alice Carey, who's been doing candidates night for probably, I don't know how many years, this is her last one. So I'd like to have everybody give her a nice round of applause. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to read it off. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and an active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. While we never endorse a candidate or political party, we are directly involved in shaping important issues to keep our community strong. Casting an informed vote is one way all of us can participate. Wow. Tonight's Candidates Forum will give you a chance to inform yourselves by listening to what the candidates have to say. Our moderator is Heather Goldstone from WCAI, and we thank you for volunteering your services.
Well, thank you to the League of Women Voters for, again, putting on this fabulous event and for asking me to be here this evening. A few housekeeping notes. First of all, we do have a handful more seats over here if folks would like to come in, as well as the overflow room next door with a TV screen there. And if we've got any last takers on these seats, in the meantime, if everybody could remember to silence your cell phones so that we're not ringing and singing and whatever else our phones might do along the way. Now, for the ground rules for this evening, I'm sure many of you have been here before and you're familiar. We have essentially 4 races that we're going to have the candidates up here answering questions. We will start, there are no opening or closing statements. I will introduce just by name only the candidates. I have a few questions which have been crafted by the League of Women Voters of Falmouth. And then we also have some questions from the audience that are on cards that I will read. And then if we have time, we have no more than 15 minutes for each race. We will take some questions from the audience using that microphone over there. If by chance we get through the first 3 races with a little bit of extra time, we may expand that 15-minute limit a little bit for the selectmen's race at the end and use up the rest of our time. The guidelines for those questions, both the questions that I'll be asking and any questions from the audience, all questions need to be addressed to all candidates, not to any one candidate. Questions should be substantive and not personal, argumentative, or intentionally embarrassing. This is not personal. This is about the issues. So, with no further ado, what we're going to start with actually is if we have town meeting candidates here, I would like to invite them to come to that microphone just over here and introduce yourself, name and precinct only, please. Do we have town meeting candidates?
Sure. Hi, I'm Joanne Treistman, and I am from Precinct 2, and I have a lot of experience doing town meeting and open town meeting, and I really hope that I can get your vote for Precinct 2. Joanne Treistman, thank you.
Virginia Valiela, Precinct 5, and I'd appreciate being returned to town meeting.
Bob Schumacher, running for re-election to town meeting member from Precinct 4. Appreciate your support. Thank you.
Peter Cook, I'm from Precinct 6. I'm running for re-election. Thanks.
Allison Maxim, Precinct 6, and I'm new to town meeting. Thank you.
Debbie Scanlon, Precinct 5.
Susan Shepherd, Precinct 1 for re-election.
William Strickrott from Precinct 8. It's my first time, and a good way to get involved, I hope.
Kira Pratt, Precinct 8 for re-election.
Megan Palanza, Precinct 1.
Hi, Doug Brown, running for re-election in Precinct 9.
Karen Hargraves, I'm running for re-election in Precinct 9.
Margot Fennell, I'm running for re-election in Precinct 8.
Hello everyone, Kathleen Berrio, Precinct 4. This is the first time I'm a candidate.
My name's Lynn Whitehead. I'm for re-election in Precinct 1.
Good evening, I'm Leah Palmer, and I'm running for re-election in Precinct 8.
Hi, Andrea Wilson in Precinct 5, running for the first time.
My name's Kevin Kavanaugh, I'm Precinct 1, up for re-election. Thank you.
Martha Gillis, Precinct 3, for re-election. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paul Dreyer, running for re-election, Precinct 2. Appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Peter Hargraves, I'm running for a 2-year term in Precinct 9.
Jim Monell, running for re-election in Precinct 2.
Pam Harding Barrett, running for the first time for Precinct 5.
Hi, I'm Kelly Welch. I'm running for re-election in Precinct 2.
Jim Fox, running for Precinct 1 for the 4th time. Haven't been elected, but this is my 4th try.
Hi everyone, I'm Eileen Jensen. I'm running for Precinct 8 for the first time.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Carol Murphy. I'm from Precinct 9 and I'm running for re-election. I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
And I am Serena Lupiccolo Smith. I'm the first name on the ballot for Precinct 6, and it's also the longest name.
Excellent. Great to have so many town meeting candidates here this evening. Now, as I said, we have 4 contested races, but we also have an uncontested candidate for a 1-year term on the planning board. That's Charlotte Harris. I'd like to invite Charlotte to also move to that same microphone and make a brief statement. If Charlotte is here? No, okay. All right, we thought maybe she would be. All right, so we're going to move right on to the contested races, and I forgot to mention one rule, which is that a 1-minute time limit for answers from each candidate. So we're going to start with the candidates for Falmouth Library Trustee. Here at the table, we have Michael Halen, Lindsay Hopewood, and Eileen Jensen. There's one candidate who is absent tonight, I am told, for a very good reason. That is Judy Fenwick. And so Judy Stetson from the League of Women Voters is going to read a brief statement.
This is Judy Fenwick's statement. The League of Women Voters has kindly offered to read my statement since I cannot attend candidates night. I am chaperoning the High School Art Honor Society's 1-day field trip to New York City. I am running for the Falmouth Public Library Board of Trustees in the May 16 town election. Folks always start off their history in Falmouth with the fact that they either were born and brought up here, are new to town, or they have been in town for X number of years. I'm in that last category, having lived and worked here for 40 years. Woods Hole has been my base for work, starting at the Sea Education Association in 1978, moving to the Oceanographic for 20 years, spending 3 years at the Woods Hole Research Center, and rejoining WHOI in 2007 to work in the Deep Submersions Lab. My roots in Falmouth, however, go back farther than 1978. My mom taught 4th grade at the village school from 1932 to 1938, and I grew up in Connecticut hearing all about Falmouth. All my life I have enjoyed words and the way they are strung and woven together. Besides loving books, I also understand the structure, the governance, and the content of the Falmouth libraries. The main library and branches in North and East Falmouth are neighborhood libraries, where they serve the needs and expectations of several generations, from traditional readers to those more digitally oriented. Libraries are offering new ways for people to connect with information they can trust, along with multiple sources of entertainment and education, and providing much needed meeting space. The Falmouth town libraries are vibrant places supported primarily by funding from the town for its annual operating budget, as well as by 2 nonprofit groups, the Friends of the Falmouth Public Library and the Falmouth Public Library Support Group. I understand the formal responsibilities of a library trustee. These range from legal responsibilities to governance and policy making, to financial, to strategic planning, and to human resources. I have had experience in these areas when I served on the Falmouth School Committee for 16 years, with my focus there on policy, budget, curriculum, and the superintendent's evaluation. That's why I'm running for the library board, to combine my experience in governance with a strong appreciation of a beloved institution. I hope you will consider me, Judy Fenwick, for the Library Board of Trustees when you vote on May 16th.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move to the questions that have been crafted by the League of Women Voters. We will start for the first question in alphabetical order and then rotate through who answers first for each question. So the first question, what do you bring to the office of library trustee? What do you hope to accomplish if elected? And we'll start here at the end of this end of the table with Michael Halen.
Thank you very much for having me here, and it's fitting that we're having this event in the library. What I bring to the library is fresh blood to the town. I personally run a community access center, and I do a lot of work with the youth in the community, Girl Scouts, high school, middle school students. And I also do a lot of work with digital technology. The library has become more than just a place for books. We are now looking at e-readers, computers, and that's something that I bring to the library board. The other thing I bring to the board is I have 3 young children, and we regularly go to the different branches of the library for story time with Miss Amy, Miss Rosemary, and we have to continue to do these programs for young kids in this town, and that is very important. And I have one more thing to say, if I could. I urge all of you not to vote for me first, but vote for me second. Vote for everyone else first, me second.
All right.
Thank you.
Time. Lindsay Hopewood.
The experience I bring is that I've been on the board. This would be my second term.
Is everyone able to, I'm sorry, we can start the timer over. Is everyone able to hear?
Okay. Okay. I bring the experience of having been on the board. No? Mike, you want to see if it's...
I'll trade off.
Okay, okay.
Yep. Yeah, I think if you just hold it near your mouth, that's probably
like an ice cream cone.
Okay. That better? Okay. I still bring experience. The third time. Having had one term on the library board, having worked with the librarians and the trustees and the friends, and I think you spend your first year kind of listening, your second year kind of learning, and the third year doing more. I've also lived in town for 35 years. As Judy said, it's kind of one or the other. And I've raised my 3 sons here, and they've gone to the school systems. I've been a town meeting member. I've been on many boards and of trustees here in time. That's okay.
I did give you extra time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and finally, Eileen Jensen.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, so I'd just like to say that I have a servant's heart, and on a personal level, that means I want to give back to others and help them to be the best that they can be, to develop their special skills. And on a community level, that kind of means I want to help the institutions and the groups that are in Falmouth to do what they were designed to do. So in the case of the library, that would be working with its collections, its programs, its services that it offers to ages across the board, whether it's the youth or older folks. I've been an administrator for 15 years now, mostly working in the scientific community, whether it be WHOI or MBL or Woods Hole Group. Before that, I worked in hospitality management, and those areas have given me kind of a big picture mentality, so I tend to always be looking into the future, intuitively thinking about the systems and if they're running efficiently, how they might be improved, how things might work better together. Thank you.
I'm afraid that's time. Yeah.
Okay.
So 1 minute's a quick hit there. Now you've all kind of mentioned how the library is changing. Technology now enables library users to access the library's holdings and stores of information without even setting foot in a library. So how do you see libraries changing over the next 10 years if fewer library patrons come to the library to browse the shelves and use reference materials? We'll begin with Lindsay Hopewood.
We
Again, if you can
already-
bring the
oh,
microphone
sorry.
up to your chin.
Well, I'm going to do this twice this time. We already have use of the library with technology. People do come use the books, certainly, but they also come use the library for the computers, for resources, for community programs. There are a lot of programs. There are a lot of courses given through the library, through the Friends. We also have a book club and a room for teenagers, a room for children, and I don't think anyone's ever going to give up books. We are certainly moving forward. Peter Cook knows that with technology, and we're able to incorporate both things, and I think that Falmouth Library will have no problem doing that.
Thank you. Eileen Jensen.
Just building on what Lindsay said, the Falmouth Public Library is an incredible community center. And I'd like to see that continue in the future. You know, we have great volunteers. We have wonderful programs for students in the summer, during the school breaks. And I really want to highlight the library as a gathering place, whether it's for folks who are meeting socially. People need to have meeting spaces for their specific events in town. And also, this can really be a great place for young people, for teens, for high school students to come to do their school projects, to have time on their own, you know, somewhere safe where they can come and read and just be in their own world. So I really see the library as a community center.
Thank you. And Michael Halen.
As somebody who works with technology every day, I can tell you this. My 3-year-old daughter knows more about iPads than my 67-year-old father. So we have to, as a library, you know, focus on technology because we can't fight technology. We have to embrace it. And the library is doing a fantastic job right now embracing technology. We have to continue doing that. The other thing that we have to do is continue to have groups here. The preschool fair was here a few weeks ago. That brought in a lot of people, and you know, there's a story time and other activities in the preschool room in the back. These are events that we have to continue to do, and that, married with technology, will keep people coming to this library for years to come. Thank you.
Question 3, what services should the library trustees initiate or broaden? And we begin with Eileen Jensen.
To be honest with you, I don't have any experience as a library trustee, so I'm not going to answer a question that I don't feel qualified to answer. I am very excited to start working with the library and to learn. I am a very fast learner, and I'm just anxious to help out the community in the library facet. So I hope you will consider my candidacy. Thank you.
Michael Halen.
In my personal business, I have a board of directors that oversee me. And they give me advice on what should be done, and I tell them if it can be done and how it can be done. And the library is running very smoothly now. And with a new director, there seem to be no bumps in the road. So as a trustee, my job would be to assist the librarian and the library staff however I can, give suggestions, but mainly be the support staff.
And Lindsay Hopewood.
Linda Collins as the new head librarian, and the librarians who are here, who are absolutely fantastic, basically run the library, and they run the programs. We're able to fund a lot of the programs with the Friends. We're able to help suggest. Elizabeth Abrams, who is chair of the Board of Trustees, has brought in some speakers and some new ideas of speakers that people within the community have really embraced. So I think we would be able, you know, we just have to continue, but that's really not our role. Our role is more with helping the librarians and giving them the funds and the permission to go ahead and do the programs they'd like to do.
We have a question from the audience. How would you respond, a very timely question I might add, how would you respond to a patron's complaint that newspapers or magazines in the library's holdings are biased toward one political point of view? And we will begin back here with Michael Halen.
unless the library purchases every news outlet in the world, there's not much we can do about that. I believe that the library has a wide variety of journals, newspapers, magazines, and you know, as a librarian trustee, we can ask to look into other magazines, newspapers, but other than that, there's not too much we can do about the news media in general.
Lindsay Hopewood.
That's really up to the librarians. They are the ones who buy and plan the papers and the magazines that are brought in, and if anyone has a request, they can certainly talk to the librarians about that.
Eileen Jensen.
I'm assuming that this was an actual comment that came up, but if it were, say, a hypothetical thing, I mean, as a trustee, I would certainly want to look into it, explore, see exactly what we do have, and then I would talk to the librarians and get back to that person. And as Michael Halen said, you know, we can't have every single media outlet in the library. There have to be choices made. So if the librarians are choosing to take the largest newspapers or the ones that are most popular, and a particular resident has an issue with that, then we just have to, you know, explain that that's why a decision was made. And sometimes you can't make everybody happy, unfortunately. So, I mean, that's what I would probably do.
Thank you. Do we have time for one more question? Okay. Is there a question from the audience? If you do have a question for our library trustee candidates, you can raise your hand to let me know and move over to the microphone here. Otherwise, we will move on to the school committee race. Going once, going twice. Okay. Thank you to our candidates for library trustee. And if we could have our candidates for school committee come to the front, please. Okay, again, we have one absent candidate this evening. The candidates here on in the front of the room, we have Megan Fleck, Alan Jacobs, Terry Medeiros, and Andrea Thorold. Philip Afonso could not be here this evening, and Judy Stetson is going to read a brief statement from him.
This statement is from Philip R. Afonso, candidate for school committee. Why are you running for one of the 3 seats? I've chosen to run for one of the 3 school committee seats because of the many parents and children I've worked with as a youth sports coach, as well as to hopefully continue to strengthen the bond between the Falmouth Recreation Center and the Falmouth Public School System. I personally feel not enough is being offered for kids between the 7th grade and 12th grade. If kids do not make the school team, band, etc., what is available to them? After holding a town-wide meeting at the Gus Canty Community Center, where I am a proud member of the Recreation Committee, I learned from the publicly invited crowd that not much at all is available. The acting director of the community center has done an outstanding job of starting to implement new and innovative types of programs for these kids. But I feel cutting through the red tape and focusing on that group specifically will help to grow those kids into the leading men and women of tomorrow. I believe physical education is just as important as general education, and the fact that kids can opt out of physical education at the high school level is counterproductive. 2 pages. To building their character and leadership skills that come with team building through physical activities. I am a proponent of calmer choice, as well as the arts and music programs. Students need a way to learn how to cope with stress levels that have never been seen. I believe that as a community, we can show them how to discover peaceful resolutions. After all, we are all one town and one family. If elected, I will work tirelessly to be an outstanding addition to the team already in place. What would I bring to the school committee if elected? I would bring my innovative ideas to the table. I would bring the parents, students, and especially the community's best interests to the voting table as well. While I am a husband and father of 4 children, I realize that not every resident of Falmouth has children. Recent studies have shown a growing number of seniors in Falmouth and a rapid decline in the number of youth. If elected, I'd like to become appointed to the school's budget subcommittee. That is one area that I feel needs more transparency. As a town meeting member and deputy captain for Precinct 9, I have noticed that we vote blanket votes for roughly $50 million yearly. I ask everyone hearing this message a few simple questions to ponder. Have you ever physically seen the school budget books? Do you know where they are located? Do you know when and where the school budget subcommittee meets? And finally, did you know the head of physical education department for all of Falmouth Public Schools has been vacant for the last 6 years? Each physical education teacher has been doing their best while not having one department head to bounce ideas or complaints off of. That's not acceptable to me, and I'd be honored to serve you all on the school committee to try to change that at one of my first meetings. Tonight, I am not present at the League of Women Voters event because my 16-year-old son bought tickets for us to sit in the green monster seats at the Boston Red Sox game. I humbly thank the League of Women Voters for their year-round work towards democracy. You all do an amazing job, and I am sorry not to be in person this evening. I don't have many chances to spend time with my eldest, as his friends, work, and other priorities come before Dad. I hope you all understand, and more importantly, I hope you to have your vote this May 16th. I would be honored to volunteer for our Falmouth Public Schools on the school committee. Thank you for your consideration, and God bless all. Philip Alfonso.
Okay, so again, same rules. We'll begin with the questions crafted by the League of Women Voters of Falmouth. What do you bring to the office of school committee member? What do you hope to accomplish if elected? And we will begin here with Megan Fleck.
Okay. Oh. I think it turned off. Hello?
If you can, yeah, if you
just hold it.
to your mouth,
Okay.
the better.
Is it on? No. No. On. Hello? Yeah. Okay. I think I offer a unique perspective to the school committee. I was a student at Falmouth Schools. I graduated Falmouth High School in 1997. When I was going to get my master's degree from Lesley University in elementary ed, I did my student teaching at T-Ticket School. And during that time, I also substituted at all the elementary schools in Falmouth, including Morse Pond. My license went up to 6th grade, so I didn't really get to go into Lawrence in the high school, but I've physically been in every elementary school and worked there at some capacity. And now I'm a parent. I have a son who is at Morse Pond School, and I have another son who is at North Falmouth School. So I think I kind of have a good overall view about how the school systems work, about their day-to-day dealings. I think that's kind of a good, I have a good background in the school system. Okay.
Thank you. Alan Jacobs.
Good evening. So I feel like the strength and the skill that has served me the best on the school committee comes from my experience as a mediator. I think I've demonstrated my ability to listen to divergent points of view, and out of those dialogues help the committee develop consensus. Some examples that I'd give you are the extensive search that we conducted for the superintendent of schools and the subsequent hiring of Nancy Taylor, our working with the Council on Aging to support their efforts to build the senior center, and the Start Times Task Force. My priority moving forward will be the health and well-being of our children, everything that came out of our work around school start times. So I will work with the school committee to make the issue of our students' health and well-being a top priority of the schools, and to build a coalition between the schools and other departments and organizations in town to improve the services that we offer our kids. this is too important of a problem for us not to work together to create the very best environment for our kids to prosper. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry Medeiros.
Hi. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for presenting this thing for the public to become acquainted with us candidates. What I would bring, I'm short too, so I shouldn't even get down to this. What I would bring is 9 years of experience, because this will be my 4th term running. But I really think you should only count 6 of them, because the first 3 you spend learning everything. And I still haven't learned it all. There's just a lot. You have to pay attention to the curriculum department and the policy, and also connect with the other boards and towns, especially the finance committee. During these 9 years, I've worked with 3 different superintendents. I've had numerous colleagues over these 9 years, because we're a 9-member board, which is the biggest on the Cape, next to the Cape, up the Cape Tech Regional School. They have a big district. But other than that, we have a very large group. And I've come out of these 9 years feeling happy to have worked with all these people. I mean, we've not agreed. Oh, that's time already? Okay.
Andrea Thorold. Yep.
Does this one work?
Could you pass the microphone to Andrea, please?
See if it's on. See if there's a green light.
There's a green light. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to Falmouth voters. To this position, I believe I bring a strong background in education, a deep connection to the community, and a track record building relationships. My degrees are in science, but early experiences teaching led me to a career in education. I've worked directly in schools, and I've directed science outreach programs, and most recently I worked at WHOI working with scientists to get them involved in education. And along the way, I've created ties to the community. Much of my experience and involvement in Falmouth schools actually came before I even had a student in the schools. In the 16 years that I've lived here, I've given back to Falmouth in many ways. I've served on the West Falmouth Library Board of Directors. I'm on the school council at Mullen Hall. I've been on curriculum committees, and I've spent most of my time actually contributing to our volunteer program, VIPS, where I now serve as the co-chair of its board of advisors. I've experience in bringing groups together and know that it's important to have the right information and the right people at the table when making decisions.
Thank you. Second question, what is the Falmouth School's role in teaching citizenship and civic engagement to all students? We'll begin with Alan Jacobs.
I think the role is critical to involve the students in terms of government, to understand how our government works, to take a role in terms of our community. I'm not sure there's more I can say to that. I mean, it's just a critical piece.
Thank you. Terry Medeiros.
Well, we have a school, a high school, it can be any year, freshman through senior, who's on our board. And I think that person acts as a role model to other kids at school to how to be involved in your governing body. So I would say, encourage her to spread the word at the high school.
Andrea Thorold, if you could. Yeah. Thank you.
Citizenship and civic engagement is critical. And I think that we have a strong partner with VIPS, our volunteer program, that works not only to bring volunteers into the schools to help support them, but also to encourage and place students so that they can volunteer throughout the community. And that's been a key piece of the work that we've been doing there. We see really good relationships forming. We get good feedback from community members as well as the students themselves. And they're going above and beyond just trying to pad their resumes for colleges.
Megan Fleck. The question, what is the Falmouth School's role in teaching citizenship and civic engagement to all students?
I think it's an important role, and I think it's more focused on the higher grades, but I think even as young as elementary school, simply, going and collecting trash on the beaches, which I know happens often, that's part of it, working together to support your community and volunteering, and I think that starts at a younger level. And I think that's great that they already do that. So I think, so far they're doing a pretty good job. I'm not sure what capacity they do it in the high school, but I don't know.
Thank you. All right, third question. Should the school committee change school start times? This decision has already been made, but I guess we will update the question a bit. Should the committee have changed school start times? Why or why not? And we'll begin with Terry Medeiros.
Well, this is easy because we did such extensive research that we found out not right now. And I think, personally, I think we need to look at other things that can help the problem of actual time in the school. I actually polled some of my students, and they maybe end up doing their homework later and staying up later anyway if they come back from sports and stuff. So the group that we put together kind of decided that no, this wasn't maybe the answer for children being tired. What came out of it was devices. We should really, instead of directing our energy towards the start time, is look at how much kids spend with devices. You'd be amazed how well, you probably all have children or grandchildren, and you know they go to sleep with that phone right there next to them. And I think devices are good, but I think we have to teach kids how to regulate them more. They, instead of being controlled by them, they should control them.
Thank you. Andrea Thorold.
Well, I was very pleased that the school committee really tabled the issue to collect more information. I think the process was there, and what we heard in some of the open forums were a lot more concerns from the community. And I think we need to bring those people to the table early on in the process. I know it was opened to everyone in the community, but I think we would do very well by targeting specific people to bring them to the table, because as you work on a project together, people build trust and understanding, they learn what's going on, and then they also become ambassadors back to the communities. So making sure that we have all these points of views represented will help us moving forward. And if they say that, you know, the research is showing that changing school start times are going to help all of our students, then absolutely, I'm for that.
Megan Fleck.
I attended that forum, and I thought it was, you know, a great forum and a lot of discussion, and I think the task force did an amazing job. I think they really focused on the adolescents, pros and cons, and maybe a little bit more attention needs to be focused on the elementary school level and the effects that it might have on those children. And I agree with Terry, you know, maybe not right now. I don't think it's something we should completely throw out the window and not discuss again. I think if we do bring it up again, maybe it should be more in line with the other districts around us. I think that would make the process a little bit easier if other towns were doing it as well.
Alan Jacobs.
So I actually was the co-chair of the school start times task force. And I really want to thank all the people that put in huge amounts of time looking at the issue. The unanimous recommendation that came out of this task force was that we did not want to change times now. The other part that came out of that was not an endorsement of what we're doing now. We don't feel like we're addressing the critical issues of our students' health in terms of what we've got now. We just, quite frankly, haven't been able to come up with a better idea. So we didn't want to make a change for change's sake. The issue is not going away, and in fact, the issue, as I talked about before, is going to expand. It's going to expand beyond the issue of how much sleep our students are getting related to start times. It has to do with what Terry was talking about having screens and use of screens, homework. We heard about nutrition. We heard about drug and alcohol use. We heard about stress. We heard about kids self-harming themselves, poverty. Thank you.
Question from the audience. What is the biggest improvement opportunity for Falmouth Public Schools? We'll begin with Andrea Thorold.
Well, an area that I've always been very passionate about and that I'm starting to hear a lot more interest in is student health and wellness, because we need students who are ready and able to learn. We can have the best curriculum, we can have the best teachers, but if they're not ready to learn, we're not going to make much progress. I feel like for many, many years, I had been a lone voice advocating for that in many different areas. And now when I'm hearing more people from the community and more people in our schools really showing this major focus on health and wellness. And that includes things that Alan was talking about in terms of stress and movement and nutrition, all of those things. I'm really heartened to see that, and I think that that's a major area we can move forward in, and I look forward to participating in that.
Megan Fleck.
Excuse me, I'm going to kind of piggyback on that and agree and say that, you know, the social and emotional needs of our children is so important right now. You know, this opioid epidemic is not going away. It's here. And there's lots of children coming through these doors who deal with horrific things daily. And unfortunately, academic success is going to have to take a back seat until we can really prepare these kids and allow them to have the skills and resources to become mindful and to learn how to handle stressful situations. You know, they can't succeed academically until they're able to do that. So I agree that the health and the wellness and the social well-being of our children is a major priority.
Alan Jacobs.
I don't think you're going to get a lot of disagreement amongst the four of us up here about this. So I guess, you know, I'll say what I said before, but what I also say is I think when you think of all the issues that we've talked about with health and well-being, it's a real credit that we have a level 1 school. We not only have a level 1 high school, we have a level 1 junior high school in this town. It's not to say that we need to sit back on our laurels. We've got some real major issues having to do with health and wellness. But a lot of great work has been done in this community and in the school systems. And yes, we need to keep making it a priority, kids' health and wellness. It's kind of easy when you've got that level 1 school, that level 1 junior high school, to kind of turn your head and say, well, everything's hunky-dory. But there's a lot of kids in this town, there's a lot of kids in this school system that are really suffering, and we need to pay attention to them.
Thank you. Terry Medeiros.
I'm going to say the same thing about the kids need more than they did when we were in school as far as help with outside forces like opioids or being connected to their screens too much. And one thing I think that we have that maybe we can use as a vehicle is this clipper time. In the middle of the day now, the school has carved out a new schedule that allows time for students to meet with teachers and do activities during the day. And some of the teachers I know work with the kids on specific subjects, but I think maybe a mentorship can develop in that situation that kids might feel comfortable talking to a teacher. Teachers are really good. They know your kids very well because they see their faces and expressions so much day in and day out that maybe they could notice something and help to you know, bring it out and help the kids talk about it. Because as Alan and all of us have said, the support in home is not what it used to be either, because so many parents have to work. I mean, many of us remember our mother being there with milk and cookies.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our candidates for school committee. There are 3 seats open for a 3-year term. So let's thank our. Well, I think we've. Hmm? Oh, it's 8:15.
No closing statements?
No. All right. Next up, we have the candidates for planning board. Okay, so we have 4 candidates running for 3 seats, each a 3-year term. John Drewley, James Fox, Pamela Harding Barrett, and Michael Halen. First question, what do you bring to the office of planning board member, and what do you hope to accomplish if elected? We will begin here with John Drewley.
Hi, good evening. John Drewley. I'm originally from Indiana, born and raised, and my wife is a Falmouth girl, and we got married and I moved here in 1970. And since that time I've been in the construction and the development business. So I have about 47 years in the construction business, and I've worked a lot with the zoning bylaws that the town has. And what I would like to accomplish is I'd like to help the town adjust some of its bylaws to make housing more affordable, not only for our youth, but for our seniors.
Thank you. James Fox.
I've served the town in many capacities, but the most important thing I bring is the 6 years that I've been on the planning board. And in those years, we've crafted a lot of big changes. The first thing we did that I was involved in was the the LLC planning committee really worked on a lot of goals and objectives and put together a plan through town meeting. Then we take those plans and make them action items, and then we follow through. The two big action items that we followed through on during my term was the first one was light industrial C, which we had to create the zoning district and then put it on top of the landfill, and now we've got a $700,000 a year cash flow coming out of that landfill that was created from the local comprehensive plan. The next thing we did was dealing with housing, and we set up goals for housing. We took them to town meeting, and we put forward a goal of getting the local accessory apartment bylaw passed. I worked on it for 2 years, had meetings in this room, learned how to get it through town meeting, and got it passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Pamela Harding Barrett.
Hi. So I have no claim to a history in Falmouth. I'm sort of a wash ashore. We moved here from the town of Acton, where I was honored to have served for 7 years on the Board of Health, 12 years on the Acton-Boxborough Regional School Committee, 9 years on the Planning Board, and when I left, I just stepped down as chairman of the Board of Selectmen. So if I had never been on the Planning Board, the curve for learning the bylaws would have been tremendous. But I brought with me, tucked under somewhere, all of the knowledge that I'd accumulated prior to moving here. This is a phenomenal, phenomenal community, and we have felt embraced here. We love it here. And what I want to do, although my husband thinks I should have joined Volunteers Anonymous by now, and I swore I would never run for another. Anyway, I want to continue. It's just in my blood. I love public service, and it says time. So, thank you.
Thank you, Michael Halen.
I sit in the microphone, please. Thank you kindly. In case any of you got sick of me before, I'm back. Can I do a quick show of hands of who is running for town meeting or any board for the first time? There's a lot of people in this room with that microphone this evening saying there's a first time running. And that is one of the reasons I'm running for this. There's 4 of us here. There's going to be 2 of them. Hopefully 2 of them will be back, and I will be the 3rd person. And I look forward to learning from the 2 of them that are back, but I also am very encouraged to see so much young, fresh blood. Not young people, just new people getting involved in town government. And it's a really good thing for our town, and I'm glad to see it, and that's one of the main reasons why I'm running. Thank you.
Thank you. Second question, what changes in the present zoning bylaws would you advocate to encourage more affordable housing? And we begin with James Fox.
Well, our local comprehensive plan, which has been approved by the selectmen at town meeting, identified 3 areas we were going for. The first one we just finished. The next 2 would be a multifamily housing district. There's no apartment buildings at all in Falmouth. I know they're not easy to find, but to place, but we don't have them, and most of our young people start off needing an apartment to live in. So that is what the housing advocates in our housing study, they gave us those 3 goals. And the second one was the other one is the conversion bylaw. We have a bylaw in this town that allows you to convert some big old homes into up to 4 units, but it has to be built, they have to be built in 1980. I think we should look at doing that differently and maybe changing it to that you could actually build them now. But they would still have to be a special permit, go through the Zoning Board of Appeals, go through all the 240, 216, the neighborhood compatibility and everything. But if we don't build places for young people to live, we're just going to get an older and older community. The trend is really bad, and we've got to try to do it around. Thank you.
Thank you. Pamela Harding Barrett.
So one of the things I'd like to see, which is kind of novel here, but we did it in my past life, is right of first refusal, where we would go out and actually look at properties that were owned by individuals whose heirs either didn't live anywhere near New England, or people just didn't want to maintain their homes. And so the town went out and we created a map, and we went and knocked on doors and had many agreements for the town to have a right of first refusal on a property. And it worked exceedingly well. I think it could work here. Jim basically gave you the areas that the LCP, the Local Comprehensive Plan, has been working on, and I've been working on that committee, and was fortunate enough to work on the accessory apartment bylaw as well. But Jim is absolutely right. If we don't bring young people back to this community, honestly, who's going to take care of us? So we have to think long and hard in terms of housing for those young folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Halen.
We still have from you again. Thank you so much. First and foremost, I would like to thank all of you for the accessory apartment bylaw and Mr. Fox for championing that. Another idea I had for affordable housing, I have a lot of friends of mine who can get a home from September to May, and then they get thrown out for the summer months because people rent out weekly rentals. Other cities and towns give an incentive for people to rent their homes year-round. So instead of them renting in the fall, winter, spring, and then weekly in the summer, let's have these houses be rented year-round, and we can offer an incentive for that. It's beneficial for our young people, our working families, and it's beneficial for the town in general when you have someone at a property all year round and not weekly renters coming in. Thank you.
John Drewley.
When we think of affordable housing, in most cases, affordable housing has housing with a deed restriction. And I would like to see housing that is not just affordable housing, but more affordable for everyone. And the way to accomplish that is to have some increased zoning in some of our areas in the town of Falmouth. You just cannot make housing affordable without more density. We just can't have 1 acre lots for everyone to live on. And I'd like to see the town work with developers and have some incentives in areas of town that the town would like to see more housing developed, and work with them and have programs to make it affordable for the people who are going to live there, either to rent or to own.
Thank you. Third question, using the language from Article 1 of the April Falmouth Special Town Meeting, what are the, quote, appropriate restrictions on the future use of Andrews land? We'll begin with Pamela Harding-Barrett.
So if you're fortunate enough to have agricultural land and you lose it, you never get it back. And too many communities have let parcels like that go to other uses. We have a wonderful opportunity now to continue using that land as farmland. I've heard any number of folks talk about maybe putting affordable housing on that property or using it for other uses. I really want to listen to what people think. This is our community, and we need everyone's input as to what happens to that property. This shouldn't be a singular board. This needs to be public participation, but I would love to see it retained as long as possible as farmland, because I don't want to let it go. I think it's way, way, way too important.
Thank you. Michael Halen.
I remember I grew up here, I was born here and raised here, and I remember as a child going to Tony Andrews to pick strawberries and the pumpkin patch and the hay rides, and to lose that for the next generation would be a shame. And there are some things in town that we have to look at and say, what's the most important thing for our community as a whole? And to keep Tony Andrews Farm as a farm for everyone is the best thing to do, in my opinion.
Thank you. John Drewley.
As I said, I grew up in Indiana, so in Indiana, if you have 30-acre farm, you really just have a garden. And, so I know the popular answer is to say to save Tony Andrews Farm as a farm, and I think it's a great idea if we can do that. But the concept is to save it as a farm for people to use it as a farm. But if it doesn't work for farming, it hasn't been affordable, it hasn't been profitable for the Andrews family. What happens if it doesn't be a farm anymore, if it's not a farm anymore? Is it just preserved as vacant land? I think there should be a second plan for that land, that maybe a third of it would be deemed to be used for housing. Like I said earlier, affordable for everyone. I think there's 30 acres or 45 acres there. Take a third of it. If it doesn't work out as farming, and set it aside for some housing.
Thank you. James Fox.
I have memories going back to the 50s and 60s of Tony's Andrews Farm and like to keep it. But I think more importantly, if we start to develop that land, we would have to start to bring infrastructure to it. We have just gone through 2 waves of spending $40 million for a water treatment plant and another $40 million for a septic system. And presently, with the rules that we're dealing with on septics and Title V and protecting our water, we really need to keep our development and growth in areas where the roads and sewers and utilities are. One of the exercises we did on the local comprehensive plan is our planner gave us a blank map of Falmouth, and with nothing on it, we had to redraw it. It was really interesting to see what the different members of the board came up with. But we all came back with the same Route 28 road going along the water and the centers of towns. And so that's why in our local comprehensive plan, we'd like to keep the farms there because we need the open space, and where we do need to develop is in our main roads where the infrastructure is and our sewers are already there.
Thank you. We haven't had any audience questions submitted. We do have time for a question or two if anyone has. If you have a question, if you could please go to the microphone right there. And again, reminder, any questions need to be asked to all candidates, not to one candidate specifically.
Steve Layton, Precinct 1. A couple weeks ago in the Enterprise, there was a map of a proposed development in the corner of Route 28 near Friendly's and extensive areas around that. I'd be interested in your opinion of the practicality of that.
Thank you. We'll begin with Michael Halen.
I apologize. Thank you. You're talking about the Greenway, basically just to the right of the rec complex, and I think it's a great idea. I think that the timing would have been better if we had planned that last year, because the Falmouth Inn just was sold for $2 million and they put $3 million into it. So we have to look at a 50-year plan and start purchasing these properties if we are going to do that. Another idea that I had is to make all of Main Street from Queen Byway down to the Rec, down to Davisville Lights, more pedestrian friendly. Set up, EV charging stations all down there, and then maybe even do a one-way street. Make Falmouth much more. We just got an award for Bikeways Committee, a Bikeways community, and we're not really embracing that, where a bikeway ends at Queens Byway. Why not extend it down Main Street to the Rec, where the new senior center is going to be soon enough, and then down to Davisville. Thank you.
Thank you. John Drewley.
That plan was a plan that we worked on this past year with the Cape Cod Commission, and they took our ideas and formulated the plan, and it's a beautiful plan. It is a 50-year plan. It can happen quicker than that, or it could take longer. The only way a plan of that substance can work is to adjust our zoning bylaws and give developers the incentive to develop it the way the town would like to see it happen. And other than that is to take property eminent domain, which is adversarial and not something that I would like to see happen. But it's a good vision for the future. The only way it's going to happen is to give the proper incentives to change the zoning and work with the developers.
Thank you. James Fox.
That is the David Straits vision plan that we actually came out of the local comprehensive plan that we've been working on for years. And it's a 50-year plan. I know about the hotel, I know about a lot of other things, but zoning isn't something that happens overnight. It takes years to have its effect. If you don't set the zoning with the rules the way you want the town to get redeveloped, it won't get redeveloped. It'll go on in its own way. And that plan is good because it takes all the areas of the floodplain and starts to looking as parks and green space. And it takes the big paved areas that are just oceans of pavement and divides them up and has multi-use buildings in them that have retail uses on the first floor and apartments on the second. And it also incorporates the thought process of using something called the transfer of development rights, which would bring additional development and density into those areas where we already have the sewer. And we would actually have neighborhoods with small stores. People could walk around with park areas. It's going to take a long time, but it's a good plan.
Thank you. Pamela Harding-Barrett.
The plan that was proposed, as Jim said, was a plan in progress, and they formulated and brought it to the board. And this is where I think everyone here comes in, because this is our community. And you might not have noticed, but I'm very big on public participation, because I think that's how things get done. The plan is spectacular. It beautifies the town. It brings in what I would like to see as smart growth, which I'm sure you've heard of, where there's transportation, there's retail, there's housing, and it's a way that the community grows in small segments. The zoning needs, there will be zoning changes, there should be zoning changes, and it may start small with no gas stations on certain corners. And when you have the green in the front, parking in the back, so that it really beautifies the community that, you know, as it's grown, it just thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other audience questions? All right, well then I'd like to thank our candidates for the planning board. And if we could have our candidates for selectmen please come to the front. Okay, last but certainly not least, and I can already tell you we have a number of audience questions, a lot of interest in these candidates. These are our candidates for Falmouth Selectmen. There are 2 seats open for a 3-year term. The candidates are Mark Finneran, Susan Moran, and Sam Patterson. First question, what do you bring to the office of Falmouth Select Person, and what do you hope to accomplish if elected? We'll begin with Mark Finneran.
What you see is what you get. I mean, I have always been the way that I am. I've always been the one that spoke up for people who couldn't speak up and stood up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. That should be fairly evident. You don't get a face like this from body punches. I was putting articles in town meeting before I was ever a town meeting member. I mean, I've put in many, passed many. Some of the ones I'm most proud of are the comment period, which gives any one of you the right to go and speak in front of the selectmen on anything that is on your mind, bothers you, or think that you can help improve. Another one I think is extremely important is the litigation report. Now we finally know how much we spend on all these lawsuits in this town. You all should read it. There's a lot of information in there that might make you slightly uncomfortable. You should, time, and I'll have more. And if I get on the other side of the table, I think I can do even more, and I want to.
Thank you. Susan Moran.
Hi, everyone. As a business lawyer, I too know how to stick my chin out. I'm a trained mediator. I serve Falmouth with the same passionate advocacy that I do my clients, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. With my first term as selectman, now vice chair, under my belt, I hit the ground running on the next term if elected. I'm ready to lead and to accomplish initiatives more efficiently. In fact, I successfully led the board this year to include communication as an initiative in the strategic plan. I know that puts more demands on staff, but juggling their lives, folks at home juggle their lives and don't always have time to watch FCTV to know all the issues facing the town. It's my job as selectman to listen to folks, to help get their questions answered, their concerns met, and to use that knowledge from voters to make policies that serve the entire community. If elected, I hope to accomplish Gold Star customer service through better, more consistent outreach.
Thank you. Sam Patterson.
Well, I'm running for my second term also, and like Sue, I actually think one of my strengths is my ability to be open and listen and engage in dialogue, share information that I have as in my role as a selectman, and really strive for consensus by looking for a common ground and getting people to work together as a team. So I think that's a strength that I bring by the approach that I take. I also hold academic degrees in mechanical engineering, physics, organization, management, and I taught school physics for 17 years, working with a diverse set of students, and I also was an engineer and engineering manager, and I think that diverse experience and educational background allows me to actually analyze problems and identify the logical solutions and plans to reach those solutions that maybe somebody with another background might not have.
Thank you. Second question, what should be done to change the way in which selectmen consider major capital projects? We'll begin with Susan Moran.
This is actually part of the communications outreach initiative that selectmen have been discussing. It's really to take our successful projects. We're just completing a couple of the sewer project, the water treatment plant. We've got the communication center running. There have been some starts and stops. There have been some really easier successes, some more difficult successes. You learn from each one. One of the things we've got to do more of is really listen to and pay attention to our committees. Another thing we've got to do, I was president of the West Falmouth Village Association. The work that we've done with the village associations has been, by and large, successful. We've got to continue that. The senior center, we've had a lot of forums, and yet even now there are more good ideas coming out that we've got to continue to listen to. The lesson is, from my first term, communication and outreach.
Thank you. Sam Patterson.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Absolutely. What should be done to change the way in which selectmen consider major capital projects?
That's a tough one because major projects, capital projects, come in many different forms and, of course, have a very different technical backgrounds. I think it's extremely important that we bring the right expertise in, that we draw in community ideas and thoughts about what should be accomplished by these projects.
Sam, if you can get the microphone closer to you.
Sure. I think it's also important that close management take place as construction goes on. I actually participated in 3 school building committees, and while we weren't directing the contractors as to what to do, we were watching what was happening and working with the architect and in this case it was a project manager that was representing us, and basically helping them make the kind of decisions that would make that project come out to serve the best interest of the community. There is flexibility as projects evolve, and I think that a building committee provides community input in a way that actually helps to guide the outcome of that particular project.
Thank you. Mark Finneran.
I think there should be more room for public input all along the way. Some of these things seem to be 2 or 3 steps down the road before we ever hear about them. And everybody's heard of groupthink, and I think that applies to a lot of our capital projects. And, you know, we have some that we all remember and will be remembering for a long time, like the high school. I also think that we're inclined to hire too many consultants. I mean, there's projects, well, for instance, the Joint Dispatch, we had 4 different consultant reports on that, and it seems like they just kept getting them till they got the one that they like. I don't really think that sort of shopping the bid does anyone any favors. And lastly, people seem to have this attitude that it's government money and it doesn't really matter that much. It's not government money. The government doesn't have any money. It's the people's money. And I think that sometimes we spend this money quite differently than the way we would spend our own. And I think that needs to be considered. I think there's a lot of money that could be saved.
Thank you. Third question. Since the position of Community Development Coordinator was not established at the April town meeting, how do you propose the stated objectives of this position be met? We'll begin with Sam Patterson.
That's something we're struggling with because it is an ongoing need. As I mentioned, I have a background in organization management. I've been an engineering manager in large firms. Supervising individuals is a challenge. In that management program, one of the things that was stressed was not to be a boss. Boss basically commands what people are to do, doesn't give them a lot of options for them to use their discretion, bullies them to some extent to get them to do what they want. But a leader, as a contrast, is a person that helps to define the objectives of the organization, that helps set the expectations for what that particular constituent is supposed to do, and the standards that need to be met. And I think that is a better way to move forward, where you basically are leveraging the expertise and the initiative and the creativity of the constituents that are actually working on any particular project.
Thank you. Mark Finneran.
Although it's quite likely that position is needed, I think there's numerous steps that could be taken first. I think we actually lack a certain amount of leadership at the top. Sometimes this government runs like it's a hydra, you know? It's got 8 or 9 different heads. We really need one person that's in charge, and I don't really, I'm sorry to say, see that happening. It seems like, especially in the whole community development department, or let's just call it downstairs, I think that somebody needs to be in charge, but first, that should be the town manager. I'm not sure that he exercises his authority enough. I think there's people there that need to learn how to do their jobs a little bit better.
Thank you. That's time. Susan Moran.
Thank you. So the idea of the community development position came from Selectmen's strategic planning in wanting to do 2 things better. One is to serve the needs of the community in practical things such as the building department, have permits not take so long, have builders be more attracted to Falmouth, to make the nuts and bolts work better, and to ask folks who worked in the offices, what are the problems you're encountering? How do you think the public could be served better? At the same time, to take a very broad look at the town and start bigger planning, using the strategic plans that the planning board is putting forth and working on, and bringing those initiatives forward so that we have, we're careful about looking at our coastline. We're looking at climate change. We're looking to the future. So for example, what's going to happen with Surf Drive when the regulations are tough on hardscaping? And so really just immediate public service and long-term visioning. Thank you.
Thank you. Sam Patterson.
The coordinator?
Yes. How do you propose to achieve the stated objectives of a community development coordinator without that position?
Okay, I think you already,
sorry.
I already answered that question.
Sorry.
I probably could have done a better job, but anyway.
Okay. Moving right along, beginning with Mark Finneran this time, why can't the senior center be 1 floor?
To be honest with you, I think it could and should. I think that the plan before this plan to be in the back of the rec was a better plan. And that would give you the opportunity to have 1 floor. I think that it should have parking underneath and be connected to the back of the rec as it was supposed to be originally. And I think that people should realize that when they built the Gus Canty Center, they needed a variance for parking. If a public private entity were to become before us with a proposal to build anything in that spot, and I mean anything, they would absolutely be denied. There is not enough parking. And cutting a second entrance into the place on the far end, closer to the motel across from the Eastern Bank, is a great idea. If it went straight downhill to the back where the senior center was, with two entrances, or an entrance and an exit from Dillingham Avenue. Unfortunately, I think you're gonna have bumper cars in that parking lot, and I don't really think it's a good idea.
Thank you. Susan Moran.
So I think looking at all of those ideas are terrific. I think we should continue to look at the site, turn it different ways like a prism, continue to ask our new panel of experts for the best and the brightest and their ideas. In terms of just a single floor building, that really was never popular in any of the forums that I attended. Folks just didn't want a long mall-like walk. Folks are used to having, going to medical appointments or libraries, having elevators or dealing with stairs. So in terms of the one floor, it's, we can continue to look at the design, and the questions that Mark just raised are great. And those are the kinds of things that people should continue to raise. The current plan, it does have an economical value, because it looks like with the school department's decision to move ahead with moving the field, it might be less expensive than long run.
Thank you. Sam Patterson.
Yes. I prefer to look at the entire campus and ask, in terms of what the town can use it for, what's the best possible use for the benefit of the town? And it just so happens that the Gale group actually came forward with a study that actually started 2 years ago by the Community Preservation Committee to take a look at the field use in the town. And if you heard the results that were reported both in the school committee and at the selectmen's meeting, they recommend that we need turf fields, because the use is so heavy, our fields don't have time to recover. So it seems to me that the merger of their report suggests that we really should move the football field up to the high school campus to settle that issue of overuse of our fields. Yes, find the least toxic way of building a turf field which doesn't require time to recover, and let us use that campus where the Gus Canny Center is for more community uses other than just football. It would preserve the Commodore's field, but allow us to use the rest of that space for parking.
Thank you. State revenue is about $460 million behind expectations. If this impacts dollars sent to Falmouth, would you support cutting services or raising taxes to maintain a balanced budget? And we'll begin with Susan Moran.
I hope it doesn't happen. I was just with Representative
And again,
Vieira.
the closer you can
get
the mic, the more we
Thanks.
can hear you.
Okay, thanks. I was just at the League's forum with the legislators, and it looks like it's a possibility, but I hope it doesn't happen. In answer to the question, and this again came up in the building of the senior center. A lot of the estimates for costs for things are, can be lowered with creative volunteerism, with, trimming our, tightening our belt. I would be dogged in, first of all, working with the community and anyone who volunteered to cut costs. I think it would be the very last thing to consider raising taxes. It might ultimately have to be considered. We have a terrific school system, but that's a big budget we've got to look at as well. Thank you, Time.
Thank you. Sam Patterson.
Yes, we faced a similar problem 3 years ago in trying to resolve the budget for the school system. Having been on the school committee for 16 years leading up to that point, I was well aware of the number of cuts we've had to make over the years. Back in around 2000, the state clawed back $1.5 million. The town had a few more reserves that they could put at it, but ultimately the school department had to lay off 4 people. That's painful, and it's putting people out of work, putting our own citizens out of work. So I would want to look very carefully at certainly where we could cut back, try to make things done more efficiently. But I would also like to give the citizens of this community the opportunity to potentially look at an override to raise enough revenues to maintain the critical services that we need in this town. It's not a black and white thing, but I think ultimately I would be interested in considering the possibility of increased taxes for myself to preserve the jobs and the quality of services that we have in the town.
Thank you. Mark Finneran.
Well, I think the first thing you need to do, and should be done always anyhow, is to look for efficiencies. I mean, across the board. If you pay attention, you can see there's small amounts of waste here and there. 3, 4, 5% across the board would be huge. If it really came down to a crunch, perhaps to put off some spending that we have on projects, at least until another year. The last thing you want to do is cut jobs, obviously. But we've heard, I'm not saying that they're crying wolf, but we've heard this 3 or 4 times in the last 10 years. And miraculously, at the end of the year, the state's receipts are back up and sometimes beyond the previous year. So, just efficiencies for starters anyway. If it gets desperate, I mean, then we have to do desperate things. But just like at home in your own budget, I mean, if you're a little short, you can find ways to get by and not really hurt yourself.
Thank you. Now that Massachusetts has changed the rules regarding wind turbines and all the problems and costs, isn't it time to ask the CEC to use the $1.5 million from the federal government to be used to take down the turbines? We'll begin with Sam Patterson.
Well, I was just attending a recent trial, and one of the witnesses that was was asked to come and testify was Nils Bolgen of the Mass CEC. And he was asked, would they be willing to forgive the loans, allow Falmouth to basically go without paying back the loan? And the answer was basically no. They weren't willing to consider it at this point. It's not that they wouldn't in the future, but at this point it was not. He also explained that the wind turbines that we ended up with were actually purchased as a speculative purchase by Mass CEC because they knew that there was going to be a huge demand for wind turbines when they're putting up wind farms across the country. And the only way a town like Falmouth would ever have an opportunity to put one up is if they bought it in advance. And so that wind turbine was made available to Falmouth when we moved in the 2000s to actually invest in such an renewable energy source.
Thank you. Mark Finneran.
Well, first off, I have to mention that when the idea for the wind turbines first came up, we went to GE, and GE told us no. They told us they were too close to the road. They told us they were too close to the houses. We didn't listen. Vestas on the second turbine made us sign off on all liabilities. Nobody told us that letter was out there for years. But as far as the question goes, never take them down. I mean, why go with the extra expense? Shut them off, drop the blades off if you want, and leave them up there as a monument to our, whatever. You use your own word. It's just an extra expense that's not needed. And as far as what we owe the state, sometimes you have to take the first step. My first step would be stop paying them. Tell them to come and get us. See what happens that way. I mean, obviously we're going to have to do something. They're costing more than they produce. And somewhere along the line, we're going to have to bite the bullet, but I hope we can do it in the least painful way possible.
Thank you. Susan Moran.
Well, stopping the turbines would not be a way to stop litigation. That would mean that the state would be suing us at that point, and we would continue to owe a lot of money. As Sam was saying, this CEC has been requested by the town to work with us, and they're just not budging at this point. And so we are going ahead as best we can with great sympathy to the neighbors who are close and uncomfortable, and at this point, there's no easy solution, unfortunately. The vote was to not go to the expense of taking them down and to not lose the credits for the energy that the town is using, and so that's where we're at right now.
Thank you. All right, as much as I would obviously love to hear more about the Community Development Coordinator, we are running out of time. I would like to thank our candidates for select person.
To Alice Carey.
And to the league.
Well, thank you for doing my job for me. Thank you very much to Alice, to the League of Women Voters for this fabulous event. Oh, my pleasure. It's my honor to be here. I've certainly learned a lot. It's wonderful to see so many new faces getting involved in town government, as well as so many returning public service servants, really thoughtful candidates. And also thank you so much to our audience for some great questions this evening and for coming out. So, thank you and good night.